It was just one sentence, 5 words. We need to visit my family. But the way Caleb said it, something cracked in his voice. He wasn't looking at me. His eyes were fixed on the floor, shoulders tense, like he was bracing for a storm. We'd been married for 8 months. I had known Caleb to be open, warm, honest to a fault. But when it came to his family, especially his mother, he shut down. Every time. So when his phone rang that morning and I saw the name Mom flash on the screen for the first time ever, I already knew. He picked up the call with a quiet, tight voice, said nothing for a full minute, just listened, then turned to me, pale and quiet, and said, "Elise, I think we need to visit my family." I paused halfway through folding a sweater. My hands froze. My stomach sank. "Wait, your family? Your mother?" I asked gently. He nodded, rubbing his forehead like it hurt to remember. "It's complicated," he muttered. "She said it's about a health issue. I don't know, but I think we should go." I stared at him for a moment. There was something in his tone that didn't feel like concern. It felt like obligation, like he was stepping into a shadow he thought he'd already outrun. Still, I saw the worry behind his eyes, and against my better judgment, I said, "Okay, I'll go with you." The further we drove, the quieter Caleb became. The GPS voice echoed through the silence like a stranger who didn't know it was interrupting grief. Autumn trees arched above us, their leaves glowing gold and red, like fire caught mid-fall. It should have been beautiful, but there was something wrong with the silence. It wasn't peaceful. It felt like we were being watched by the road itself. And then, the estate appeared. "Oh my God," I whispered. The Grant family mansion stood like a monument to control, tall, white, symmetrical, flawless. Every hedge trimmed to perfection, every window gleamed. The gravel on the driveway looked hand-placed. But it wasn't just beautiful, it was sterile, soulless, too perfect to be real. "You grew up here?" I asked Caleb quietly. He didn't answer right away. When he did, his voice was colder than the October wind. "It wasn't a home," he said. "It was a museum, and we just slept there." I turned to look at him, but he was already tightening his grip on the steering wheel, knuckles white, jaw clenched. And in that moment, I knew I didn't belong here, not just as an outsider, but as a threat to whatever they were still hiding inside those perfect walls. The front door creaked open with eerie precision, and there she was, Margaret Grant, tall, immaculate, timeless in the most unsettling way. Her silver blonde hair was pulled into a bun that didn't dare shift. Her pearl earrings caught the light like weapons. Her beige dress was tailored so perfectly it looked pressed onto her skin. She didn't smile. She assessed. Her eyes scanned Caleb like an X-ray, head to toe, before they slowly shifted to me. And then the smile came. "So glad you finally brought her." She didn't say, "I'm happy to meet you." She didn't say, "Welcome to our home." No, it sounded more like, "You've completed your assignment. Let's see what you dragged in." I extended my hand, trying to be polite. "Thank you for having us, Mrs. Grant. Margaret, please," she replied, taking my hand with cool fingers. "We're family now, aren't we?" Her touch was firm, but her tone was like porcelain, fragile, but sharp enough to slice. She looked at my simple dress, my flats, my minimal jewelry, and smiled a second time, but this one was thinner, colder, like a smile carved into ice. As a uniformed staff member took our bags, I leaned into Caleb and whispered, "What did she mean by finally brought her?" He didn't meet my eyes, just muttered under breath, "She always says things like that. Ignore her." But I couldn't, because I wasn't being welcomed. I was being evaluated. And this wasn't a family reunion. This was a casting call, and I was already failing the audition. The dining room was stunning. A long mahogany table stretched across the room like a runway for judgment. Crystal glasses, candlelight, silverware aligned like soldiers. It was the kind of setting where secrets were served with the soup. I took my seat beside Caleb. Margaret sat at the head of the table naturally, like a queen presiding over her kingdom. Daniel, Caleb's older brother, greeted me with a dazzling smile that felt just a little too practiced. "So the little brother finally brings his bride home," he said, lifting a wine glass, "to new family members." I smiled politely, but something in his tone made the back of my neck tighten. Margaret nodded in approval, then turned to me with a warmth so rehearsed it was practically scripted. "Tell me, Elise, what exactly does your family do?" And just like that, the dinner became an interview. She asked about my childhood, my parents, their deaths, the absence of extended family, my job, my income, my health, whether Caleb and I plan to have children soon. Each question was polite, refined, delivered with a smile, but every word felt like a needle slipping under the skin. I tried to answer calmly, but I could feel pieces of myself being taken one answer at a time. And Daniel, he watched the whole thing with that same charming smirk, like it was entertainment. "Do you believe in family legacy, Elise?" he asked suddenly. "I believe in building your own path," I replied. Margaret's smile froze, then tightened just slightly. "How modern of you," she said, sipping her wine. But I didn't miss the look in her eyes. This wasn't dinner. This was screening. And I was being measured for loyalty, for blood, for threat level. Somewhere between the second course and dessert, I stopped tasting anything. Not the wine, not the roasted duck. Not even the tiramisu that looked like it belonged in a 5-star magazine spread. Because it wasn't about food. It was about exposure. Every word I spoke, every breath I took, Margaret was watching. Not just with her eyes, but with something sharper, like she was dissecting me on the table without ever lifting a knife. Her questions had slowed, but the silence she left behind was worse, because it was loaded. She wasn't looking for answers. She was searching for cracks. Every polite nod was a calculation. Every sip of wine, a measurement. And across from her, Daniel kept smiling like a man watching a chess game he knew he'd already won. Caleb tried to interject, change the subject, lighten the mood, but Margaret always pulled the conversation back. To me, to my past, to my bloodline. I looked around the table and finally realized this wasn't dinner. This was a tribunal. The house, the perfect lighting, the cold silverware. It wasn't warmth. It was strategy, and I wasn't a guest. I was a suspect. The morning light looked beautiful, but nothing felt safe. I stepped into the kitchen to find Margaret already there, arranging white roses into a crystal vase, like she was prepping for a funeral. "Good morning, dear," she chirped, her voice sweet but mechanical, like it had been fine-tuned for appearances. "Did you sleep well?" I smiled, lied. "Yes, thank you." "Wonderful," she said. "Caleb's still resting, so I thought we could have some mother-in-law time." She turned toward the stove where a kettle hissed softly. Steam curled through the air like smoke from a warning flare. "I've made some tea," Margaret continued. "It's an old family recipe. My mother passed it down to me, and her mother before her." She placed a delicate china teacup in front of me, amber liquid shimmering inside. "Tradition matters here." I nodded, gripping the saucer, feeling porcelain against trembling fingers. She sat across from me, hands folded neatly, watching me with the stillness of a predator. "The secret is in the herbs," she said quietly. "Some say it's almost medicinal." I raised the cup, ready to fake a sip, and then my phone buzzed. I checked the screen casually. It was Caleb. "Whatever you do, don't drink the tea. I'm coming. Act normal." Time stopped. The cup hovered at my lips. Steam curled beneath my nose, and across the table, Margaret watched, not blinking, not smiling, just waiting. It smells lovely, I whispered, my voice steady, only barely. I tilted the cup, let the warm edge brush my mouth, but I didn't drink, not a drop. Delicious, I lied. Her lips curved slightly, but her eyes never softened. Drink up, dear, she said. It's best while it's hot. The room felt colder. The cup felt heavier. I smiled and kept pretending. Because this wasn't tea. This was a test, and Margaret was watching to see how far I'd go to survive. It started with a door that wouldn't open. Most rooms in the Grant estate were wide open, perfect, polished, performative. But this one, the east wing, locked, and that made it interesting. When the house was quiet and Caleb was cornered in a casual brotherly chat with Daniel, I walked the hallway alone, carpet thick beneath my feet, air too still, like the house was holding its breath. I stopped in front of the door again, tried the handle, still locked. I glanced around, then looked at the decorative vase on the console table beside it. No one was watching. I reached in, and there it was, a small brass key. I froze, then slowly inserted it. Click. The door opened. Inside was a study, but not like the others. This one wasn't staged. It was used. A desk cluttered with real papers, books with cracked spines. A laptop closed, dusty, not polished for display. Filing cabinets lined the far wall. I walked over, heart pounding. One drawer locked, the others open. I pulled slowly. Labels in neat handwriting, medical records, Grant legal trusts, Daniel College legal, and then Elise Carter, my maiden name. My breath caught. I pulled the folder out with shaking hands. Inside were photos, dozens of them, me walking out of my old apartment, me getting coffee with coworkers, me sitting in a park. From months before I ever met Caleb, I'd been followed, watched, for over a year. One photo was dated 18 months ago, me unlocking the door to my office. Attached to it in ink so neat it was almost elegant. Subject continues employment at Greenwood Center. No connection found to Target yet. Target? What Target? I didn't have time to think. Footsteps close, fast. I shoved everything back in place. Closed the drawer, locked it, slipped out the door just as Margaret appeared at the end of the hallway, books in her arms, smile on her lips, eyes razor sharp. "Elise, dear," she said sweetly, "are you lost?" That night I couldn't sleep, not after what I found in Margaret's study, not after realizing someone had been watching me long before love ever entered the equation. But nothing prepared me for what came next. The next morning, Margaret invited us into the formal living room, a room so pristine it looked like even dust wasn't allowed to breathe there. She carried a folder, the same kind of folder I had seen in her locked cabinet. She placed it on the table, sat down gracefully. Daniel stood behind her like a loyal shadow. Caleb and I sat across from her, our backs straight, hands clenched. "Elise," she began, "your mother's name was Emily Carter, correct?" I hesitated, nodded. She opened the folder and slid a photograph toward me. And my world tilted. There she was, my mother, younger, but unmistakably her. The same eyes, same posture, same gentle strength. But what shattered me? She was standing in the Grant estate gardens, and beside her, smiling, was Victor Grant, my husband's father, Margaret's late husband. "Your mother worked here," Margaret said calmly. "She was our household manager for nearly 3 years." My heart slammed against my chest. "That's not possible," I said, my voice cracking. "She was a teacher in Ohio." "After she left our employment, yes," Margaret replied. "She reinvented herself. People do that, especially when they leave under disturbing circumstances." Caleb looked pale, shocked. But Margaret wasn't finished. She and Victor were quite close, she continued. Some might say inappropriately close. I wanted to scream, to throw the photo across the room, to deny it all. But deep down, something inside me whispered, what if it's true? The silence after the photo was suffocating. Margaret sat still, hands folded, lips pursed, like a judge waiting for a confession that never came. You see now, she said, why I had to look into you? I couldn't breathe. You think my mother had something to do with Victor's death? I asked, barely able to speak. I think, Margaret replied calmly, there are too many coincidences. My husband dies unexpectedly. Your mother, his confidant, vanishes the very next day. And then decades later, her daughter shows up attached to my son. She leaned forward slightly, voice like ice across marble. You must understand, Elise. I couldn't ignore it. Caleb stood. Mother, this is insane. Sit down, Caleb, she snapped. You brought her into this family. Now we all have to live with the consequences. Daniel, who had been silent this whole time, finally spoke. There's an easy way to end this, he said, pulling a small case from his coat. A DNA test. He opened the case. Inside, 2 cheek swabs and a sealed vial. I stared at them like they were weapons. Just a swab, he said, if you've got nothing to hide. My skin went cold. I'm not giving you my DNA, I said, standing up. This is madness. Margaret didn't blink. You'd refuse a simple test. Why? Unless you're afraid of what it might prove. She said it gently, almost sympathetically, like she was doing this for me. But her eyes were trying to erase me from the family line, as if I didn't belong, as if I was a virus they'd let in through the front door. You're not looking for the truth, I whispered. You're looking for someone to punish. Margaret didn't deny it. The door clicked behind us. At first, I thought it was just heavy. But then, I heard the sound again. Metal, turning, locking. I froze. Caleb turned back, tried the handle. It didn't budge. He jiggled it, then shoved. Caleb, I whispered, tell me it's not locked. He didn't answer. His hand dropped from the doorknob like it burned him. I rushed to the nightstand. No phones. I checked my purse. Empty. Where's my phone? I asked, panic rising. Caleb opened a drawer. His was gone too. Then he went for the coat hook near the door. Our keys, he muttered. They're gone. The air in the room shifted from discomfort to captivity. I turned slowly, took in the pristine guest room with its cold matching lamps, its spotless carpet, its picture-perfect bedding, and I finally understood. We weren't guests. We were contained. Margaret hadn't just invited us, she had lured us. She didn't want to welcome me into her family. She wanted to control me, test me, break me. And now, she had me exactly where she wanted. There was a camera in the hallway, tiny, disguised as a smoke detector. But once I saw it, I started seeing all of them. One above the bookshelf, another tucked near the curtain rod. The guest bathroom mirror had a tiny light that blinked only once when I passed by. Caleb, I said slowly, she's watching us. He followed my gaze. His face dropped. This whole place, it's rigged. And then I saw it, the family portrait in the hallway, the one that seemed too new. I looked closer. The eyes, one of them had a lens inside. I laughed, but it wasn't funny. She never wanted answers, I whispered. She wanted control. Margaret didn't believe in finding the truth. She believed in manufacturing it, in collecting evidence, in twisting it until it fit her version of the world. She wasn't trying to prove I was guilty. She was trying to make me guilty. In her mind, it didn't matter what was true. It only mattered what she could prove on camera. That night, we didn't sleep. We whispered in darkness under a blanket like kids planning to escape summer camp. But this wasn't camp. This was survival. We can't call for help, I said. But maybe we can leave a message. I tore a piece from my notebook. Just 7 words. Help. We're trapped in Grant Estate. I folded it into a tight square, slipped it into my sock, deep under the arch of my foot. If they find it, I whispered, it'll be because I'm already gone. Caleb nodded. He checked the vents, the hinges, the hallway patterns. We counted the camera angles, timed the rotations. 2:17 a.m., he said. That's our window. I looked at him and realized this wasn't the same man who once flinched when his mother raised her voice. This was the man ready to run through fire with me. We laid out the plan. A distraction in the kitchen, noise, movement. Margaret would check the noise herself. She always did. And that's when we'd slip out. Not through the front door, through the laundry chute, through shadows, through silence. Branches slapped our faces, mud clung to our shoes like hands trying to pull us back. We didn't speak. We couldn't. Every breath felt too loud. Every snapped twig behind us sounded like a gunshot. We were 2 shadows slipping through the trees until the forest lit up. Headlights. Daniel's Jeep. He wasn't yelling. He wasn't honking. He was hunting. Go left, Caleb hissed. There's a ravine. We'll lose him. We ducked into brush, stumbled down an incline. A root caught my ankle. I fell hard. My palms hit gravel, blood, dirt. But I kept going, because behind us, the engine roared, closer. You think you can just leave? Daniel's voice finally cracked through the dark. This family doesn't let anyone walk out. He was close now, too close. Then a clearing. A shack. Old, abandoned. We lunged for it, slamming the door shut. No signal, no lights, just the sound of tires circling the woods outside, and the pounding of my heart in my ears. The shack was falling apart. 1 window left, a rotted door. But inside, it was dry, dark, and safe for now. We barricaded the door with a broken filing cabinet. Dust swirled with every breath. No cell service, Caleb muttered. We're dead in the water. But then I spotted it. A radio. Old. Military style. Covered in cobwebs. I lunged for it, twisted knobs blindly. Static. Silence. Then, Ranger Base, come in. Anyone there? I pressed the button, hands trembling. Please, please, we need help. We're at an old ranger station, Grant Forest. Someone's trying to hurt us. The signal cracked, went silent. I held my breath. Then a voice, faint, distant. Copy that. Hold position, units en route. I collapsed to the floor, heart racing. We weren't safe yet, but someone knew. And then, in the distance, a siren. Just one, but loud enough to reach our bones. Caleb looked at me. They're coming. I nodded, tears falling. Just hold on. Just a little longer. The siren was growing louder, but so was Daniel's engine. We heard it tear through the forest like a beast with no skin. Gravel spitting, headlights slicing through trees. He was here. I grabbed Caleb's arm, yanked him to the ground beside me. We couldn't run. We couldn't hide anymore. Just then, the radio crackled again. Units arriving at GPS point, flashing lights in 30 seconds. But 30 seconds felt like a lifetime. Outside, the engine died. Footsteps, crunching leaves. Daniel? Closer, closer. Elise. His voice coiled through the wood like a snake. Come out now. You know this ends with me finding you. I held my breath. Then red and blue lights, blinding, spinning. Police, drop your weapon! Barking dogs. Boots on dirt. Daniel froze. I jumped up. We're here. We're locked in. He was chasing us. 2 officers pulled the door open, guns raised, eyes wide. One reached for me. The other tackled Daniel before he could move. 3 more seconds and it would have been too late. The manor was quiet now. Sirens faded. Officers moved through the halls like ghosts with flashlights. In the study, one officer opened a hidden drawer behind the fireplace. "We've got something," he said. It was leather-bound, old, smelled like smoke and secrets. Victor Grant's personal journal, the last year of his life written in trembling pen strokes. Each page a confession, a warning. She doesn't serve tea, she serves silence. I can't prove it, but Margaret is slipping something into my drinks. She watches me, more than she grieves me. And then, the only soul I trust here is Emily Carter. She's more loyal than my own blood. Elise read the name again and again. Emily Carter. Her mother. Victor trusted her. Not only that, if anything happens to me, find Emily. She knows where the truth begins. 3 days after the police raid, Elise received a knock on her motel door. "Mrs. Grant, you've been requested to sign for a legal delivery from a Mr. Elias Monroe, private estate attorney." She opened the envelope. Inside, a letter handwritten by Victor Grant, stamped with his personal seal and dated just 2 weeks before his death. "If you're reading this, Margaret never gave you the truth. She hid my final will because it wasn't in her favor. Victor had established a trust fund 25 years ago, not for his sons, not for his wife, but for Emily Carter, the housekeeper who had once saved his life in secret." And in the amended will, Elise Grant, as the sole living heir of Emily, was the legal and rightful beneficiary. $3.7 million, a private home in Oregon, and every share Margaret thought she stole. Victor ended the letter with 5 words that made Elise's hands tremble. "The Grant name belongs to you." The lab results came back in 48 hours. Scopolamine, enough to disorient, enough to erase. She wasn't just serving tea, she was serving control. Margaret was arrested at dawn. Still in her silk robe, still pretending she had done nothing wrong. "I was protecting my family," she told the reporters. But the cuffs around her wrists said otherwise. Meanwhile, Daniel vanished. Security footage showed him leaving the estate just hours before the warrant was issued. He took his car, a duffel bag, and a safe deposit key. Some said he ran to Canada, others whispered Mexico, but Elise knew the Grants never run without a reason. They hide until they think you've forgotten, and the world didn't forget. CNN heirloom teacup laced with lies. The Guardian, Grant matriarch accused of drugging daughter-in-law. BuzzFeed, poison and power, inside the most twisted family in America. The headlines were brutal, but the truth was finally louder than the house that tried to bury it. They didn't move. They exhaled. Portland wasn't just a new city. It was a clean page, still blank, still full of color. Elise opened a small art therapy studio downtown. No big sign, no press, just a soft light and a door that never locked. "For women who've been told too often to keep quiet," she wrote on the wall. Survivors came in silence, left in color. There were broken wives, anxious daughters, even former heiresses who no longer knew who they were. And slowly, stroke by stroke, Elise handed them their stories back. As for Caleb, he filed the legal documents that stripped the Grant name from every official record. He sold the last heirloom, burned the family crest. "My family doesn't define me," he said, "but standing by Elise, that does." Together, they weren't starting over. They were writing forward. The envelope came with no return address, no note, no explanation. Just an old photograph, black and white, slightly cracked at the edges. It was her mother, Emily Carter. Standing in front of the Grant estate, the same stone path, the same cold ivy walls. She looked young and exhausted, her hands clenched around a suitcase. But it was her eyes that stopped Elise cold. They weren't crying. They weren't angry. They were free. The date on the back read October 17th, 1999, the day Emily left that house forever, the day she chose silence over revenge, but not weakness. It wasn't just a photo. It was a message, across time, across blood. From one woman who escaped to another who survived. Elise didn't cry. She smiled. "You got out too," she whispered. "And now, so did I." Legacy isn't always about money or titles. Sometimes it's a pain wrapped in silk ribbons, beautiful on the outside, but hiding scars beneath. Truth has a way of finding its way out, like water through cracks in the strongest stone. This time, I survived. I'm Elise, and now I live to tell the story. Life often hands us legacies wrapped in both blessings and burdens. The true strength lies not in escaping our past, but in facing the shadows it casts, reclaiming our identity, and choosing our own path forward. Never let anyone else's control define your story. Even when trapped by secrets, manipulation, or family pressures, your voice and freedom are worth fighting for. Remember, truth always finds a way to the light, and so can you. If this story touched you or reminded you of the battles we all face behind closed doors, make sure to subscribe to Through Her Eyes. Join a community that uncovers hidden truths, celebrates resilience, and empowers every woman to tell her story. Hit that subscribe button now because your story matters. And don't forget to click the bell so you never miss a moment of courage and truth. Together, we rise. Together, we heal.